point out that terrorism is an essential feature of Islam. For years, I've been telling the world what Muhammad taught his followers. He said, "I have been commanded to fight against people till they testify that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." He said, "I have been made victorious with terror." Muhammad said, as clearly as anyone has ever said anything, that his true followers are going to fight you until you convert to his religion, and that their path to victory is terror.
Christian psychopath David Wood has been had made a video a few days ago talking about how the Prophet Muhammad always wanted to fight people in order to get them to convert to Islam. So the Prophet Muhammad was waging war against non-Muslims just because they were non-Muslims, and he wanted to wage war against non-Muslims so they can become Muslims. So that's David Wood's argument in a nutshell. Now, is this argument true? No, it isn't. Now, let's go to the first hadith he cited. The first hadith he cited says, and I'll read the relevant part. He says, the Prophet Muhammad says, "I have been commanded to fight the people until they say there is no God but Allah." So David Wood's conclusion here is that Islam allows aggressive warfare against non-Muslims in order to make them convert to Islam. Now, is this true? No, it isn't. Now there's basically two responses to this. The first response is that in this tradition, in this hadith, the Prophet Muhammad was talking about fighting the people in a certain context, those who are waging war, who are waging an active war against the Muslims. So basically in Islam, jihad or war, first of all, let's go into the meaning of the word jihad. Jihad simply means struggle. There's no Arabic word for holy war in Islam, in Islamic theology, in the Quran, in the Hadith, which is the two most authentic sources of Islam. War is either justified or not justified. If we read the Quran, chapter 2, verse 190, it says, "Fight those who fight you, but don't fight wars of aggression." So that kills David Wood and other critics of Islam's argument that Islam wants the world to either convert or die by the sword. So getting back to this hadith, in the historical context, in the historical context of this hadith, it was talking about those who were fighting wars against the early Muslims, which would include the Prophet Muhammad. As Ibn Taymiyyah, and Ibn Taymiyyah was a very important Muslim scholar, a classical Muslim scholar, he comments about this hadith. He comments on this hadith saying, "The meaning of this tradition is to fight those who are waging war." This is the important part. "Who are waging war, whom Allah has called us to fight. It does not mean to fight those who have made peace with whom Allah has commanded us to fulfill their peace." And so basically, this hadith is talking about the people who are already waging war against the Muslims. And if you want to know the source for what I just cited, it's let me look it up. It's Ibn Taymiyyah in his Majmu' al-Fatwa, volume 19, page 20. And again, I'll be leaving all my references on the screen for people to follow. So, other variant readings of this hadith provide qualifying aspects that specify the people, and this is the important part. The people in that, the word "the people" in that hadith does not mean like all non-Muslims. It doesn't mean like Jews, Christians, Hindus, atheists, whatever. It doesn't mean every single non-Muslim. It says that the people being talked about in that hadith who should be fought are actually the pagans or the idolaters. Anas bin Malik, one of the disciples of the Prophet Muhammad, said that the Prophet Muhammad said he was commanded to fight the pagans or the idolaters of Arabia, which would exclude Jews, Christians, and other people of the book. And the reference for that, let me see, the reference for that would be Sunan al-Nisa, volume 7, number 70, Sunan al-Nisa, volume 7, hadith number 3966, and this hadith is authentic. So basically, that translation inside Muslim, they didn't. I don't think they translated a certain word right, because the people actually refers to idolaters or pagans. So the real hadith, or the better translation of that hadith, is found in the Sunan al-Nisa hadith I just cited, where it should have been the pagans, where the people should have been translated as the idolaters or the pagans. So further, another classical Muslim scholar, Ibn Kathir, who was one of the most important Muslim scholars, suggests that the Prophet Muhammad said this in connection with the revelation of Surah 9, which should be noted was sent down in regards to the pagans who were habitually violating the peace. So this hadith was talking about the warmongering pagans of Arabia who were attacking the Muslims. So Muslims weren't attacking them. The pagans were attacking the Muslims first. Keep in mind that most of Arabia was pagan, and they were against Islam from day one. Okay, so getting to the second hadith, David Wood cited is that the Prophet Muhammad said, "I have been made vicious with terror." Now the Arabic word used in that hadith. Now I think that word was mistranslated, so I'm not gonna blame David Wood. I think he's relying. See, this is why you can't rely on English translations. You actually have to read the Arabic to understand what it's talking about. The Arabic word used there is rub, and the translator of Bukhari translated it as terror. However, the Arabic word rub actually doesn't mean that. The Arabic word rub means means to frighten or to install fear or anxiety. We read in Musnad Ahmad hadith number 20337, the Prophet Muhammad said, "I was given victory through rub." The enemy becomes filled with fear, or rub or fear, even though they are the distance of a month's journey away from me. So basically, that Arabic word rub is better translated in the Musnad Ahmad hadith I just cited, where the Prophet Muhammad said, "I was given victory through fear or anxiety." The enemy becomes filled with fear. So basically, that Arabic word rub was mistranslated. It should not have been translated as terror. It should have been translated as fear or anxiety. So basically, the fear. The Muslim scholars have understood that the fear, in that the fear that the Prophet Muhammad had on the enemy actually saved the Muslims in many of the early Muslims' enemies, the hardship of battle and warfare. So people were afraid. So the enemies of Islam, which would be mainly the pagans, they were afraid of the Prophet Muhammad. They didn't want to wage war with the Prophet Muhammad because they were afraid of him, because they knew Islam would win with divine assistance, etc. So basically that hadith was mistranslated. I don't know what English translation Wood is relying on, but that word was mistranslated. The problem with David Wood is that he's not a student of knowledge, right? He doesn't check like hadith commentaries like Ibn Hajar, Imam Nawawi. he never cites any Arabic. He never speaks any Arabic in his videos, etc. So I don't think he knows what he's talking about when it comes to Islam. And basically, if we read the sources on the life of the Prophet Muhammad, authentic sources, Prophet Muhammad only fought 82 wars, 82 wars in his life, and only about 1,018 people were killed, according to Siddiqui translation of Muslim, volume 3, page 941. So Prophet Muhammad only fought 82 battles. He wasn't, fighting wars every day or whatever. And 1,000 people were killed. That's pretty much about it. Again, like isolating hadith and just drawing your own or making up your own interpretations of hadith is not going to work here. So basically, in Islam, there's a concept, or in the Quran, which is what Muslims believe is God's word to humanity. In the Quran, chapter 2, verse 256, we all know that verse where the Quran says there is no compulsion in religion. So basically, you can't force anybody to stay a Muslim, and you can't force anybody to convert to Islam. Muslims can live peacefully with non-Muslims. Muslims are not commanded to convert people to Islam by violence or by force. Now, some might say that, the Quran, chapter 2, verse 256 is abrogated or it's been canceled out, and this is false. Because, first of all, the Quran, chapter 2, verse 256 was revealed in Medina and not in Mecca. So it was revealed in the last stages of the Prophet Muhammad's, it was revealed in the Medinan stages. It wasn't revealed in the early stages of the Prophet Muhammad's ministry. It was revealed in the later part of Prophet Muhammad's ministry. And basically, many early Muslim scholars and classical Muslim scholars say that the Quran, chapter 2, verse 256, that says that there's no compulsion in religion, is actually still standing. It's not abrogated. And these include Ibn Taymiyyah, al-Tabari, Abi Uwaid, al-Jaṣṣās, Malik ibn Abi Talib, al-Nas, Ibn Jazī, Ibn Ansur, Mustafa Zayed, and many others. So basically, you can't, as a Muslim, you cannot force anybody to be a Muslim. You have to live peacefully with non-believers. And we read this in other Quranic verses. The Quran chapter 10, verse 99, Quran chapter 11, verse 28, Quran chapter 18, verse 29, Quran chapter 88, verse 21 to 22, where these Quranic verses indicate that compulsion is strictly prohibited. You cannot force anybody to be a Muslim. You cannot force anybody to be a Muslim or stay a Muslim. We read further that let each person believe or disbelieve whatever he or she wishes. The Quran chapter 109 verses 1 to 6. So people are free to believe in the Islamic religion or other religions. So people are free. So in Islamic theology, people are free to be atheists, Christians, Jews, etc. And you can't force Islam on anybody by violence or whatever. We further read in the Quran that you can live peacefully with disbelievers in the Quran chapter 43, verse 88 to 89. And no, this verse is not abrogated. So basically, Muslims can live peacefully with non-Muslims as long as non-Muslims are not physically attacking or doing any kind of violence to Muslims. So in Islam, war is either justified or it's not just. Muslims can only engage war if they're being threatened or if their lives are in danger. And we keep in mind that the Quran says follow the Prophet Muhammad in many places. So what was the Prophet Muhammad's example? Ibn Qayyim, who is one of the classical Muslim scholars, confirms that the Prophet Muhammad never used violence or physical threats to make people become Muslims. He only, Prophet Muhammad followed the Quranic injunctions in the Quran chapter 2 verse 190 that says, fight those who fight you, but do not fight wars of aggression. Again, see the Quran chapter 2 verse 190. Anyways, Ibn Qayyim writes this in one of his books. He writes, the Prophet Muhammad never forced a religion on anyone, but rather he only fought those who waged war against him and fought him first. As for those who made peace with him or conducted a treaty, he never fought them and he never compelled them to enter his religion, which is Islam. As his Lord, the Almighty, had commanded him, there is no compulsion in religion, for right guidance is distinct from error. Whoever ponders the biography of the Prophet Muhammad, it will be clear to him that he never compelled anyone to accept his religion, and that he only fought those who fought him. As for those who conducted a truce with him, he never fought them as long as they upheld their truce. So this is further indication that in Islam, war is either justified or it's not justified. There is no aggression. You can't fight wars. You can't fight people just because they're not Muslim and to make them Muslim. And the references for this is Ibn Qayyum's book, Hidayat al-Hadayah fi Ajawat al-yahūd wa-al-naṣārā. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce the Arabic. I'm not an Arab, so I can't speak their language that well. Volume 1, page 237 and 238. And again, I'll be posting all my references on the screen. So again, this has always been the understanding of not only the disciples or the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, but it's always been the understanding of the classical Muslim scholars. And the Prophet Muhammad said, follow the Muslim scholars, or follow the people who are learned in the religion, or follow the first three generations of Muslims. So basically, this refutes the idea that Islam is an aggressive religion and it wants to convert. It's a convert or die religion. That's completely false. That's completely false according to correct Quranic theology. So I hope this clarifies what Islam says about jihad and war, etc. What Islam says about jihad and war, etc., etc. Basically, there's different types of jihad, and jihad means to struggle or to strive. There's no such thing as a holy war in Islam. So basically the Prophet Muhammad said that whoever strives to gain many possessions, or whoever does a jihad to gain many possessions for himself, is in the path of Satan. And Ibn Qayyim said there is jihad against four types of enemies: the lower self, nafs, Satan, the unbelievers, and the hypocrites. Basically, there's jihad is more of a spiritual jihad. It's not a physical jihad. And this has always been the understanding of the Muslim scholars. And if you want the references, let me see if I can pull up the references. It's the references for what I just cited would be al-Baqaini, Sunan al-Sunan, al-Kubra, hadith number 17824, Ibn Qayyum's book Azad al-Ma'ad, volume 3, page 9, you know, etc., etc. So basically, you know, we have to do a little bit more research before we just start drawing our own conclusions about what Islamic sources says. For example, the Prophet Muhammad said that the one who strives in jihad is the one who strives against his lower self. You know, so that doesn't mean someone like chokes himself or someone fights himself. It's a spiritual struggle. You know, so basically, jihad means struggle. It does not mean physically fighting non-believers to make them believers, or non-Muslims to force them to convert to Islam. In the hadith, in the saying of the Prophet Muhammad I just cited is found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi, hadith 1621, and it is declared authentic by Tirmidhi in his comments. So basically, if you want to know more about jihad and how jihad is mainly a struggle against oneself in order for oneself to submit to the will of God, see Ibn Qayyum's book, Zad al-Ma'ad, etc., etc. And there are many other books, but that's probably like the best one to read about what Islam says about jihad. Jihad is never a physical concept where you go and you fight people in order to convert them to Islam. No, jihad is mainly an internal struggle within Muslims so they can find submission to the will of God. A fight against Satan, a fight against influence from non-Muslims, etc., etc. This is what Ibn Qayyum says, Ibn Taymiyyah, etc., etc. You know, classical Muslim scholars. So I hope this clarifies the misconceptions about what Islam says about war and what jihad really is. Stay tuned. The final videos are coming up.